Welcome back. In this video, we're going to look at the letters of the Greek alphabet. The letters of the Greek alphabet are important to learn for astronomy students because stars are named with the letters of the Greek alphabet. For example, the brightest star of any constellation is named the Alpha star. The second brightest star is named the Beta star, and it goes on down the Greek alphabet. So we have these two brightest stars in the constellation Gemini. The one on the left is called Pollux. The one on the right is called Castor. And the one on the right is the brightest star of the Gemini constellation. So while it's called Castor, it's also known as Alpha Geminorum. And you'll notice the Greek letter, the symbol, Alpha. And then this is the constellation Gemini. In the Latin, that's the possessive form of it, so it's Geminorum. The second brightest star in Gemini is Pollux, Beta Geminorum. Beta is the second brightest star, and it's the second letter of the Greek alphabet. Another example is Beta Cygni, known as Albireo. Now, this is actually a double star. When it was discovered and named with the Greek letter nomenclature, people didn't know that it was actually two stars, and it was only later when the telescope was invented that they could see that it was two stars, but it still retains the one star designation, just being known as Beta Cygni. And here it is in the constellation Cygnus. There it is, Albireo, or Beta Cygni, at the head of the swan. And the brightest star in that constellation is Alpha Cygni, which is the tail of the swan, and it's otherwise known as Deneb. Another example is the star Rigel. It's in the constellation Orion, and it's also known as Beta Orioni. And there it is in Orion, Beta Orioni. And by the way, Alpha Orioni is right up here, the brightest star in the constellation. Let's look at the letters of the Greek alphabet. You'll be learning the letters throughout the semester. Now, if you're taking a 6-week astronomy course, there are 24 letters. So divided over 6 weeks, you'll be learning them at a rate of 4 per week, or about 1 per day. In my normal 16-week semester, we break it down so you're learning about 2 letters every week. But let's look at the first 4 letters. I want you to notice with these symbols how much they look like and how much these letters sound like the letters of the Roman alphabet, which is what we use in English and Spanish and French and Italian. We use the Roman alphabet. So in the Roman alphabet, we have A, B, C, D. And in the Greek alphabet, it's alpha, beta, gamma, delta. So alpha corresponds to A, beta corresponds to B, gamma doesn't really correspond to C, so that's a little different there, and delta corresponds to D. So if while you're learning the alphabet, you see that it has a lot in common with the Roman alphabet, it'll be easier to learn. And in fact, the Roman alphabet comes from the Greek alphabet. Here we have the symbols, alpha, and I want you to see that it looks a lot like the letter A. Beta looks like B. Gamma, that's a little different there, looks kind of like a Y. Delta looks kind of like a letter D. You will be expected in this class to know the letters in order from alpha to omega. You'll be expected to recognize the symbols. I won't ask you to write out the symbols, but when you see any one of these 24 symbols, you should be able to know what letter it is. And you should be able to spell them out in Roman letters. For example, alpha is A-L-P-H-A. Now, even though I won't expect you in this class to be able to write out the letters, it'll help you to learn them better if you get a little practice in writing them. So as you write alpha, I'll teach you how to do this. You start with at the upper right hand and come down and like this, and there's alpha. And my handwriting's a little messy because I'm using a mouse on my computer. Let's do it again. And I recommend you practice this at home. Don't just watch me do it. And alpha. And one more time. With my not so smooth mouse, alpha. Pretty good. Okay, now beta. We're going to start low and to the left and bring it up and there's beta. And this is why I printed it out for you on the screen, so you're not going by my sloppy with the computer mouse handwriting. Oh, that was awful. Let's do another one. Up. You know, I think I need a better mouse pad here. Let me give one more shot at this. Up. Ah, that's much nicer. So beta. Good. Okay, now we have gamma. We're going to start on the upper left hand and bring it down and then up and then down and up and down and up. There's gamma. And then delta. When you write the letter delta, I want you to imagine you're writing the numeral 8, but then leave off the last 3/4. So when I start writing an 8, I start at the upper right hand and I bring it around. I'm writing an 8. Doesn't it look like I'm making an 8? But then I'm just going to stop right there and leave off the upper right hand. So let's do it again. To make a delta, making an 8, and then I just stop there. One more time. Delta, I make an 8, but then I stop in the middle, and there's my delta. All right, very good. Let's go on to the next 4 letters. We have epsilon, zeta, eta, theta. So we had alpha, beta, gamma, delta. We add to it epsilon, and it sounds a lot like A, B, C, D, E, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon. And now we have 3 that don't fit into the pattern of the Roman alphabet, zeta, eta, theta. But what helps in remembering them is they're a group of 3 all together and they rhyme. So let's practice writing epsilon together. Epsilon looks like a backwards numeral 3. So there we go, epsilon. Zeta. Zeta's a little tricky. We're going to start it at the upper left hand, make a little loop, make the big curve there, and then a little curve at the end. So a little loop, a big curve, and then a little curve at the end. Let's do it one more time. Little loop, big curve, little curve at the end. Practice writing zeta a few times. Get proficient with it. There will be a letter later on in this video that is probably the hardest one to write, but if you can do a zeta well, it'll be very easy because it's a minor addition to the zeta. All right, let's do the next one, eta. Eta looks kind of like a cursive uppercase N. We're going to start at the upper left hand and bring it down like there's a candy cane, and then bring it back up the candy cane and make a big loop, or not loop, but a curve like that. So there's my candy cane up and like that. Candy cane up and like that. Theta, this one is pretty easy. It's an oval with a horizontal line through it. So let's make an oval, horizontal line, oval, and horizontal line. I don't like that oval. Let's do it one more time. Oval and horizontal line. Very good. Let's move on now to the next letters. Here we have iota, kappa, lambda, and mu. Now these follow the pattern of the Roman alphabet pretty well. So you think we have I, J, K, L, M. And there's no J equivalent in the Greek alphabet. That's okay, we'll skip it. But iota is kind of like the letter I, and it looks just like an I. Kappa looks just like a K. Lambda corresponds to the letter L, and mu corresponds to the letter M. So for iota, that's a pretty easy one. Just draw it straight down. I usually give it a little curve at the end. A little curve at the end. Whoops, there's my iota. Kappa looks kind of like a capital letter K. Makes it easy to remember. If you can draw a K, you can do a kappa, no problem. Lambda. So lambda, we're going to start at the upper left hand and bring it down like that, and then start in the middle like that. Looks kind of like a stick figure cartoon drawing, maybe of a giraffe or some kind of dinosaur or something. I'll start at the upper left hand and bring it down. There's the tail of my giraffe, and then his leg like that. There's lambda. And let's do mu. Mu, we're going to start, if you're writing on lined paper, we're going to start below the line, bring it up, and then swoop it down, and then one more little downward swoop like that, mu. Again, we go like this. And I'm showing you the mechanics of how to draw it. Of course, if you want to see how it should really look, because my handwriting isn't too good on this video, but refer to over here on the left. That's how it should look. All right, let's give it one more mu. Up, swoop it down, and then swoop it down just a little bit. There's mu. All right, driving on to the next four. These next four letters, mu, psi, omicron, pi. So coming after iota, kappa, lambda, mu, which fit the Roman alphabet pretty well, I, of course, there's no J, K, L, M. Now we have N, and it's following the pattern pretty well. Now there's this one letter that sticks out like a sore thumb in the Greek alphabet, at least to our Roman alphabet sensibilities, psi, which is kind of like the letter X, but they stuck it there in the middle, psi. And then the pattern will continue that we're used to in the Roman alphabet. After N, there's something like O and then P. So we have nu, psi, omicron, and pi. Nu looks kind of like a V. I put a little more curviness to it than I usually do a V. So there's nu. Psi. Now, a bit ago, I told you when going over the letter zeta, I said that there's a letter coming up that's pretty tricky, and this is it. Now, let me first write a zeta. Remember, you start at the upper left hand, you make a big swoop, and then a little curve like that. That's zeta. Now, with psi, the only difference is right in the middle, right about here, you're going to put a middle loop. And so I can pretend like I'm writing zeta, and then I'm doing the big curve. But right in the middle of the big curve, right here, I'm going to put in a little loop. Bring it in, loop it around, continue the big curve like there. And that's psi. So again, make like I'm writing zeta, no problem, but then give it a little loop, bring it back, and continue, psi. So you should be by now proficient in writing zeta. And now we have psi with the little loop in there. Omicron, very easy. It just looks like an O. And then pi. Pi, we have a table with two legs. Pi. The table, it's a little bit of a curvy table. Usually not a flat horizontal surface, put a little curve in it, and there's pi. The next four letters, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon. This follows the pattern of the Roman alphabet very well. You think after LMNOP, we just had pi. Q, well, there is no Q in the Greek alphabet, so let's drive on from there. RSTU, so rho, sigma, tau, upsilon. Now, rho, be careful, it looks like the letter P, but so don't confuse this with pi. Rho, and it's like the lowercase letter p, but just a little bit of curviness to it. When we write a letter P, we tend to write it with a horizontal stick and then maybe a bit of a circle coming from it. This has a little more curviness to it, but there's rho. Sigma looks kind of like a cursive lowercase o. So there's sigma. Tau is easy, looks a lot like a T. In fact, if you think, write the letter pi, but give that table only one leg to stand on, right in the center. And there's your tau. Upsilon, very easy. Basically a lowercase u. Upsilon. And we have the last four letters of the Greek alphabet. Now, these don't correspond to letters in the Roman alphabet. phi, chi, psi, and then omega. Well, just like zeta, eta, theta, which didn't belong in the Roman alphabet, at least these three rhyme. So phi, chi, psi, just be sure you learn them in the right order. Omega corresponds to the letter O. It makes the O sound, and it's at the very end. Well, let's write these. So phi, you're going to do a circle and a line going through it. A circle and a line going through it. Sometimes, depending on the font, you might see it as a circle and then the line starts at the top of the circle like that. That's another way to write phi. Chi looks like an X. So we have chi. It's not really the K sound, it's more the K. In English, we don't have that sound, but it's like in the musician Bach or the Loch Ness Monster. It's chi. And then we have psi. So for psi, draw something like a U and then a straight line going through it. It looks kind of like a trident. Practice writing that. And finally, omega, kind of like a W, but a little curvier to it. Whoops. Okay, let me try that again. Omega. All right, there we go. So we have all 24 letters now of the Greek alphabet. And here they are. Again, I expect you to learn them in order. I expect you to recognize the symbols. So when you see, for example, if you see this one right here, to be able to recognize and say that that's rho, and also to be able to write it out to spell it in Roman letters as you saw in the screen. So here they are, the 24 letters of the Greek alphabet. I'm going to sing through them. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, psi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega. And that's it for the letters of the Greek alphabet. Have a great day.